on, baseball fans? Back at it with another New York Mets video, and I'll definitely have a lot more Mets content up as the season gets going and we start to hear some trade rumors during the winter meetings. And I expect the New York Mets to be very active. And for those of you that do not know, I post almost exclusively New York Giants content, especially during the football season. I am a diehard New York Mets fan. I know a lot of you guys are probably New York Yankees fans, and it's been tough being a New York Mets fan my whole life. I probably started following the team around 95 or so, and Mike Biotz obviously coming to the team made me a diehard New York Mets fan, and I wear my colors with pride, even though it's not always the easiest to root for this baseball team. Since I've been watching the New York Mets, they've made the playoffs, I think, a combined 5 times in 99, 2000, 2006, 2015 and 2016, where we were eliminated in the wild card round. I've seen them reach 2 World Series, but I've never seen this team get over the hump. And a major reason for that is the New York Mets play in a sport, unlike football or basketball, where there is not a salary cap. Now, there's definitely penalties when you spend a lot, but the New York Mets play in a big market, sharing a city with the team that spends the most money, and they operate like the Oakland A's under ownership with Fred Wilpons. And a lot of that goes back, obviously, to the Bernie Madoff scandal. The Mets used to spend, never on the level of the New York Yankees, but none of us will forget that the New York Mets used to spend. They used to bring in prominent free agents, but really the last prominent person that they brought in on a long-term contract was probably Carlos Beltran in terms of a deal that was over 5 years. I think it was a 7-year deal where it was a record-breaking contract where the Mets actually stole him from the New York Yankees. Since then, I guess you could say the Jason Bay deal, but I think that was only a 4-year contract. And obviously, they've retained some players like Yoenis Cespedes after the trade and like Jacob Degrom, but the Mets have not operated like a big market baseball team in quite some time, and New York Mets fans have become very upset because of it. Countless times we've seen the New York Mets try to take the cheap way out, fabricating the payroll to say that they were higher than they really were, and never signing guys to long-term deals, instead trying to find cost-effective contracts. And in a sport where there's no salary cap, and you play in New York, and you share a city with the Yankees, it's tough. Being a New York Mets fan, I have no hate towards New York Yankees fans, but it is tough to see that team go out there each and every year and competing for a World Series title, knowing that the New York Mets, if we're lucky, will give us a 2-year stretch over 12 to 13 years because of the way that they operate. And sometimes they'll make boneheaded trades, and I don't need to go over all the heartbreaking trades that I've endured as a New York Mets fan. But to see the Wilpons go is a blessing. And New York Mets fans have been calling for this forever. And it still has to get approval, I think, from de Blasio. But from everything that I heard, it was kind of him just doing his due diligence. The New York Mets were kind of waiting to get ownership approval throughout the league to give the team to Steve Cohen. And what does this mean as a New York Mets fan? Well, let's put this in perspective. Right now, as of now, before Cohen officially becomes the main owner of the New York Mets, in which he's owned a small portion for years, but he's never had full say, and he grew up a New York Mets fan. The richest owner in all of baseball is worth approximately $4 billion. Steve Cohen is worth $14 billion. He's worth $10 billion more than any other owner in the sport, or nearly 4 times the wealthiest owner in all of baseball. If you combine the 3 wealthiest owners as of now, they do not equal Steve Cohen's wealth. And in a sport like baseball where there's no salary cap, that's pretty valuable. And I expect the New York Mets to go out there and spend not just this year, but for the foreseeable future. I think Steve Cohen, being that he grew up a New York Mets fan, being that all Mets fans and all of baseball knows that this man is worth as much as he is, knows what he's inheriting. He also overpaid for the baseball team. He wanted it that bad. He knows that he's inheriting a starving fan base, okay? He knows what it's like to be a New York Mets fan, and he knows to get over the top and to get the back page headlines, you've got to spend, and you got to outperform the New York Yankees, the most successful team in all of sports. And the New York Mets used to go neck and neck, and New York baseball is at its best when both teams are at the top, and right now, the New York Mets are certainly trending that way. Obviously, I'm a diehard New York Knicks fan as well, and I've been calling for James Dolan to sell the team for quite some time. But even if Dolan were to sell the team, I don't think it has near the effect of a new owner for a baseball team, especially as wealthy as Steve Cohen is. The reason being, there's a salary cap in basketball. Obviously, it would operate differently, and it couldn't be worse than Dolan, who's been a complete embarrassment to the New York Knicks fan base in the way that he handled the Charles Oakley situation, in the way that he forced the trade for Carmelo Anthony, so on and so forth. Steve Cohen to me sounds like a smart guy. The guy's worth $14 billion. He's a fan, and he's going to want what is best for this New York Mets organization. In terms of the GM, Brodie Van Wagenen, we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. Of course, he was part ownership with Brodie on the team, but he will make some decisions, and Brodie has not done the best of jobs. He's definitely made some questionable trades, whether it be the Cano trade and several others that have not worked out for this New York Mets baseball team. But I would suspect he will probably be back, being that it was only a 60-game season in his second year. But what I expect the New York Mets to do this offseason is go out there and bring in big-ticket free agents. Something we haven't seen for a very long time. We have not had a sturdy catcher since Mike Piazza, and even Piazza, we all know, wasn't great with the glove. JT Realmuto is staring us right in the face. There's a prominent starting pitcher out there with Trevor Bauer, and I expect the New York Mets to be heavily involved in all the big-ticket free agents, not just for this year, but for the future. And I expect them to try to compete with the New York Yankees. And maybe one day soon in my lifetime, I'll actually get to see the New York Mets no longer be the little brother. We've been waiting for that for quite some time, and today it just became a lot more realistic that the New York Mets could be a consistent winner in this town, something that they've never been. You know, you go back, you think about the New York Mets. Obviously, we have all the miracle days with the 69 Mets, the 86 Mets, and in the 80s, they were fairly consistent. You just didn't have the wild card. Not as many teams made the playoffs. But we have not been a consistent winner in this town since I've been watching this baseball team. With Piazza, yeah, they gave you 99 and 2000, 2 great years. And after that, they kind of fell off. 06, they rebuilt, they retooled, they gave you that World Series run, near World Series run where we went to Game 7 against the Cardinals. And then the following 2 years, we had 2 major collapses, but we put a competitive baseball team on the field. And after that, again, they fell off until 2015 and 2016, in which they snuck into the playoffs under that, that last-ditch hurrah, led by Asdrubal Cabrera, kind of going out there and limping on his leg. But the Mets have never been a consistent team like the LA Dodgers or like the New York Yankees or like the St. Louis Cardinals. And the main reason for that is instability and the unwillingness to go out there and make the moves when they need to be made. And now, with Cohen aboard, I expect the New York Mets to be highly competitive. No more Moneyball. No more Oakland A's. When you charge New York prices and you share a town with the New York Yankees, New York Mets fans expect you to go out there and put forth a good product each and every year. And this team is not that far away. We definitely dealt with some unfortunate injuries this year. We still got a lot of young talent on this team. And with a couple of big pieces, the New York Mets could be right in the thick of it in 2021 and the foreseeable future. I cannot wait till Steve Cohen officially becomes the owner of the New York Mets. But today, we got ownership approval, and it's a big step in the right direction for this New York Mets baseball team. I can't wait to cover this team during the winter meetings, as I'm sure we're going to start to hear the hot stove heat up, and maybe the Mets will bring in a couple of big pieces for the 2021 squad. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.